When asked what my favorite pie is, it's generally lemon meringue pie. It's always been one of my favorites, but I recently tasted a version that had me looking at traditional lemon meringue pies from a new angle, upside down. Let me show you what I mean. It's a simple pie to make. You need 4 egg whites in the bowl of your mixer, because this is going to be the meringue, and you need 8 egg yolks for the lemon curd. So you start beating this with 1 tablespoon of water, which helps break up the albumin. And in the meringue, add 1/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar. And once the egg whites become soft peaks, start adding 1 cup of granular sugar slowly. Now gradually add the sugar. So very beautiful meringue. So this gets smoothed into the buttered pie plate, up the sides, and just onto the rim. Now preheat your oven to 300 degrees, and you're going to bake this for 40 minutes. Turn off the oven and allow the crust to stay in there for another hour. This is so pretty. This recipe comes from our test kitchen recipe tester's grandmother, Josephine Riege. Put this right into your oven. So now for the lemon curd, which is the filling of our lemon meringue upside down pie. 8 egg yolks, whisk those until they're yellower, and gradually add 1 cup of granulated sugar. And you'll need 4 teaspoons of lemon zest. And we need 6 tablespoons of lemon juice. So you're going to need approximately 1½ lemons. There. So stir this. Make sure you mix everything up, and you can then put aside the whisk and use a wooden spoon as you cook the curd. Now, you never, never, never can leave this on the stove by itself. They will curdle if you cook too hot. Look how quickly it's thickened. This is very nice lemon curd. Turn off the heat and put the curd in a bowl to cool. And it will become even thicker than this as it cools. Put a piece of plastic wrap right on the surface of the curd and let cool in the refrigerator. So now fold 1 cup of cream whipped into your lemon curd. So now pour this into your shell. And isn't that a gorgeous shell? Look how beautiful, light and airy and perfectly cooked. A little bit of color. So just swirl this and chill. So this beautiful pie has been chilled for approximately 8 hours. Top it with stiffly whipped cream. Just a very fine dusting of lemon peel. There. You are going to adore the taste of this extraordinary pie. So that one's for you, and this is all for me. Enjoy. Today, joining me is Michelle Goldsmith, who is the pastry chef at Nobu 57, and she created this unusual, refreshing frozen dessert. So the cake first. So you wanted to tell me what to do, or should?
Sure, okay. Sure. So why don't you start by 2 eggs into the mixing bowl.
Okay.
And then we'll add 1/3 cup of sugar.
Okay. And now you have dry ingredients too,
yes.
Of course.
So we're gonna let this whip and come up to like 3 or 4 times in volume.
Okay.
So in the meantime, we can go ahead and add 1½ teaspoons of the baking powder to 3/4 cup and 2 tablespoons of AP flour. And we'll give this a little whisk. So then we'll go ahead and add 1/4 cup of the grapeseed oil to 1/4 cup of the coconut oil.
So grapeseed oil, so no butter in this cake.
I actually prefer an oil-based sponge over a butter-based sponge. Yeah.
So grapeseed oil, and then 1/4 cup plus 2 tablespoons of coconut milk.
Coconut milk has a very, very light flavor, but there's a nuttiness to it
And then what other coconut is in this cake?
So we also have a 1/4 cup of desiccated coconut, which will fold in at the
Unsweetened.
end. Unsweetened.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can take it
so
all the way down and add coconut oil.
all of it?
No, little by little.
Okay.
And then go ahead with the coconut milk. I prefer at room temperature. I find that it spreads easier in the pan. We're all finished there. So now we can turn it off and...
Would you use the beater to mix in, or?
The best thing to do would be for if you'd like to sift it over, and then I'll fold as you sift.
Okay, I'll do that for you.
So that way we don't lose anything.
So it's good to have an assistant.
Always. Perfect.
Good.
I recommend adding the flour first before the coconut, so you can really make sure that all the flour is properly incorporated.
So it's a very little bit of coconut, 1/4 of a cup.
Yes.
Desiccated,
Yeah, just to
shredded
give it a
coconut.
little extra coconut flavor. All right, and then we'll go ahead and pour it into our 10-inch pan.
Now, is that spring form buttered and lined with paper too?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it is.
You don't flour it
No, it's not necessary.
because of all the oil, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
And make sure your oven is preheated to 350 degrees. For how many minutes?
Between 20, 25.
Oh, really?
Turn it once, and then it's ready when we touch the center, and it kind of bounces back a bit.
Set your timer.
So we've cooled down the sponge, and then because life is not perfect, we want to just trim this a little bit to get a nice, even, flat layer. Okay, so we have a yuzu syrup here, which is basically made with sugar, water, yuzu juice, and coconut milk.
Oh, good.
If yuzu juice isn't available, lemon works perfectly.
How much will you use?
It'll drink a nice amount.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll do this for you, and then you're melting what over
Yes,
there?
so then we're gonna put the coconut crunch on the bottom. So I'm melting down some white chocolate here in a double boiler.
Okay. So you want it wet but not soaking.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to add some tahini. If you want to go ahead and add the tahini.
To what? To
To the white chocolate, yeah.
Oh, that's an odd combination. So
It is, probably.
So tahini is...
It's a sesame paste, white sesame.
Yes. Okay.
So we'll add a 1/3 cup of puffed rice cereal.
Puffed rice cereal?
Yes.
That you have for breakfast?
Yes.
Ah.
And then we'll also add a 1/4 cup of,
Desiccated coconut.
and then I'll go ahead and zest half a lemon
Pinch of salt.
and half a zest of lemon.
Great. Fragrant lemon.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so we want to flip this over. No, yeah, perfect, there we go. And then just spread this over. It's actually a lot easier to do this when the cake is cold. You just take that to the edges.
So if you don't have time to make this, just buy some halva and grind it up.
And add some cereal and you'll be fine.
You finish.
Sure.
So put this back in the freezer.
Yeah, so we
Okay.
will go ahead and wrap this in the
Wrap it
freezer.
with plastic, put it in the freezer until it's frozen solid.
Yeah, maybe a good hour or so.
Okay. So now this is frozen solid.
Yeah, it's
And
frozen.
so you can pick it up and just
Put it right back in there, yeah.
Okay, into your springform pan. Soaked with the coconut milk.
Right, so the coconut soak is side up and the crunch is side down.
And you have an acetate here to...
It'll give us a really nice crisp edge
okay.
at the end.
That's your pineapple.
Yeah, so this is roasted pineapple puree. Basically what we do is take pineapple, peel it, core it, cut it into small pieces, and then add a little sugar syrup and vanilla beans.
So good. So good.
And then we roast in the oven for 2 hours.
So it's about a little bit more than a cup.
Yes. So then we'll put this back in the freezer, and then once this is set up, we put the mousse on top.
So now we're making a semifreddo out of white chocolate.
Yes, it's a coconut semifreddo, yeah.
Oh, okay.
With white chocolate.
So 2 egg whites, beaten
Start
with
beating that.
1/3 of a cup plus 1 tablespoon of sugar.
Yes. While you're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and bloom our 2 sheets of silver strength gelatin. Cold water. Okay, so then we have 1.5 cups of coconut milk. So we'll heat that with 1/2 cup of desiccated coconut, and then a zest of 1 lemon.
And this is white chocolate.
Yeah, for this recipe, you really want to stick with a 35%. Anything lower, we have less cocoa butter, and the mousse is going to come out a little bit softer. Just bring it to a boil.
You're gonna pour that over the white chocolate?
Yeah, we're gonna strain it out over the white chocolate. Our gelatin is nice and soft.
So that's 1 sheet of gelatin?
It is 2 sheets.
Okay, how about that?
That looks great.
Okay.
This is just coming to a boil. Turn it off. Add the gelatin to dissolve. And then strain this over the chocolate.
Oh, you're straining the coconut out?
Yeah, we just took all the flavor. And then strain this very, very well. And then what we do is actually keep this leftover coconut and lemon mixture and then add a little bit more coconut, a little bit of sugar, and dehydrate it, and that becomes a coconut crisp garnish. Okay, so we just very, very gently mix this from the center out. We want the gelatin to begin to work its magic powers before adding in the meringue and the cream.
This into there?
Yeah, go ahead. And oftentimes I'll switch to the whisk in this beginning part just so we can avoid lumps, but I'm really folding. And then we'll go ahead and add in our whipped cream.
Oh, whipped cream.
Yeah, we have 3 very different textures, so we kind of want to balance everything out very gently.
And now just that would be a delicious dessert.
Yeah, this on its own, just
Yeah.
in a cup. Just serve with some fresh fruit or something even. So we can just pour it right on top.
Yes. So now you can see why you need a 10-inch springform pan. And back to the freezer.
Yes,
Okay.
back to the freezer.
So the dessert is out of the freezer, and look at that. Extraordinary.
And then you can decorate it however you want.
You show me, because
Absolutely.
you're so artistic.
Okay, so for me, I like decoration to be super simple. So I would just do some roasted pineapple, maybe a little coconut flake. That looks good enough for me.
That is so beautiful. And then the coconut.
Yeah, so we have this coconut sorbet. I know you are a big fan of the coconut, so we'll go ahead and scoop that up.
That is spectacular. We have another sugar dough that's been turned 4 times. Roll this out a little bit and cut it in half, as we did for the brown sugar cinnamon rolls. And we're going to cut this in half. It is an interesting dough because it's yeast and sugar, and a lot of things can happen to it, like the moisture in the dough melting the sugar. So you have to work with this dough and get to know it before you say it's yours. Okay, so we're going to cut this in half with and this can just sit aside. We're going to make snails. I like to fill this dough with other flavorings. You don't have to use just sugar or sugar and cinnamon. You can also utilize poppy seeds that are slightly ground in a blender or in a food processor. Pecans, walnuts, also very delicious, and chocolate, of course. So we want to roll this dough to 18 by 12. We're almost there, and for the last few rollings, you can spread your poppy seeds all over the surface of the dough and roll them in too, because they'll adhere to the dough better. Do you like poppy seeds?
On a bagel.
Yeah.
On a bagel? Oh, do you learn how to make bagels too at the school?
Yes.
Oh, great. And I'm going to add a little bit more sugar because you can't have too much sugar on this laminated dough.
Now, if you didn't roll it out in sugar, could you make these savory?
Yeah, you could. You could incorporate cheese, like a Parmesan cheese would be delicious. You could do poppy seeds and sesame seeds and cheese. So now we're going to roll this up extremely tightly. There. Try to keep this snake all the same size, same diameter. So, very nice. And cut this into 12 equal snails. And we have these beautiful rings. These are a little different from the Queen Amande. These are going to raise a little bit higher, and how nice. These two you can get at cooking supply stores, baking supply stores, as well as online. So we need 12. I will cut in half first, like a sushi roll. And then in half again. Serrated knife works very well. If your dough is too soft, pop it into the fridge for another few moments just to let it harden up a little bit. You'll cover with plastic wrap and let rise almost to the top of the ring, and you're going to put them into a preheated hot oven. These are all made from the laminated dough that we've just learned how to make. And I think that if you put these out on a brunch table, well, no one will believe that you made them yourself. Okay, so we already
creamed 6 tablespoons of butter
and
with our sugar.
1.5 cups
1.5 cups of sugar,
okay.
exactly. Now, our next bit, we're gonna take 2 large egg yolks plus 4 large eggs into our mixing bowl.
Should I add the vanilla to here? Or are you
No, we're going to do the vanilla here.
Okay.
We're going to do 1.5.
Real vanilla extract.
Okay.
So
There we go.
this is creamed enough, right?
Creamed enough, yeah, that's fine.
Lovely.
Now, of course, we're going to whisk this up.
Now, you were practicing this yesterday, I heard.
I practiced, yes. I wanted to make sure that I was going to be Martha ready. Unfortunately, I had an I Love Lucy moment.
Michael Kors, one of our top designers, is practicing for our show.
Yeah, and I had more of a Lucille Ball moment. Sugar flying everywhere, it was crazy.
Now, do I add these to that?
Yeah, well now what we're gonna do, we're gonna take our dry ingredients, we're gonna mix it up. We've got 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour.
Okay.
In we go. As you can see, I'm a little messy. 1/2 teaspoon of salt.
And baking powder.
Teaspoon of baking powder. And we're just gonna kind of mix that up.
You can use that whisk.
Oh yeah, I'll do this one.
I think they forgot to give you a bowl.
That's all right, it works in my measuring cup, that's fine.
Okay.
And in we go, slowly.
Alternating eggs with flour?
Exactly,
Okay.
right.
So it's a basic baking powder cake.
Exactly.
Very simple.
Listen, you couldn't
Flavorful,
be as
though.
Flavorful. You couldn't be as glamorous as my grandmother.
Now, would you suggest to your customers that they wear their finest Michael Kors shirt to bake in?
Of course.
Without an apron? I'm being
With no
very
apron, yeah,
brave.
exactly. And we're all black, as you can see. A smart thing with flour. In we go. I think my grandmother always wore a lot of jewelry when she cooked.
She did? Lots of rings
She
and
was
stuff?
very glam, yeah,
Oh, boy.
absolutely. So
Okay,
we're mixing up.
Okay, so I should scrape.
Yeah, we can scrape. Okay, so,
Okay, what else?
well now let's start the whole process rolling
Okay.
here. So we've got a 9-inch cake pan.
Okay.
I'm
just gonna beat this one.
How you
little-
doing there?
oh,
Yeah,
just
you're good.
Just one little last bit,
So,
but don't overdo it, right?
no, you don't want to over mix is not great.
Okay.
We're going to take our butter, which is melted. We're going to pour it into the cake pan. It's unsweetened butter.
So you're making what? You know what Thomas Keller calls this?
What is this?
Butter, sugar, and nuts, right?
You know what I call this?
What?
Fattening.
But you know what Thomas Keller calls it?
No, what is it called?
Schmear.
Schmear.
Yeah.
Schmear. That's what I call your skirt. It's made out of schmear.
Oh.
It's cashmere.
Oh, cashmere.
Cashmere. So
no,
then,
this is schmear.
Schmear is good. We're going to take our
Yeah.
brown sugar. We've got a cup of it.
Thomas Keller's so elegant, and he calls things schmear.
Well, I always say the colors can be ishy. It's
Ishy.
greenish, beige-ish.
Oh, ishy. Oh,
you know,
okay.
ishy. So we're going to spread this brown sugar all at the bottom of our pan.
Doesn't matter that they get the CFD award, they still say ishy.
Ishy, exactly. It's ishy. Now.
But you have fun, right?
Oh, absolutely.
You travel all over the place. I mean,
I
this
love
new
to travel.
Oh, a little later on, we are going to get a very special preview of the resort collection, all inspired by a trip you took.
Yeah, an amazing trip I took out west. You know, and I'm the last person you'd imagine on a horse. I think you might have a picture. I'm an
Let's see,
urban kind of boy, but.
Where is that picture of you?
So I'm layering here, Martha.
Oh, there you are. Look.
In black.
But you have sneakers on. You don't even have riding boots.
I know. I didn't realize I was riding until I got there.
You're supposed to be a fashion icon.
I know. Well, you know.
You look
Fashion
terrible.
icon in sneakers. What can I tell you? So we're layering our pineapple rings.
So
They've been draining.
you're just using regular canned Dole pineapple.
Dole pineapple, but we've drained it.
Okay.
We've drained it.
When did the nuts go in?
Now we're going to take 1/3 cup of pecans.
Now this is different. Okay, my mother never put pecans in
I
hers.
love the pecans.
Yes.
So there we go.
Do you know where pineapples come from originally?
Not Hawaii, where?
Not Hawaii.
Where?
From Brazil.
From Brazil.
Yep, they're New World fruit.
So now we're going to take our batter, we're going to pour it in.
And then how do we bake
We're going to cook
this?
this at 325 until a cake tester comes out clean. It's about an hour and 10 minutes.
Okay, so the one you made yesterday, did you eat it?
I did, actually. It was divine.
Yeah, it was. Did you have guests over? Did you and
No, I inhaled the whole cake by myself. No. No, I actually took it to a dinner party. It worked out very, very well. So there we're getting there.
Have to get it all in there.
All in. And then
we have one that's already done.
we have one that's already done.
Do you want to invert it?
Yes, let's. Oh God, here we go. This is the big nervousness. So first,
I want to see how you invert it on this beautiful cake pedestal.
we're going to make sure that we've taken a sharp knife around the edge.
Yeah.
Then
That goes in the oven. Don't forget.
that goes in the oven. And now, here we go.
It's not hot.
It's not hot?
No. Oh yes, it is.
Women have asbestos hands.
No, it is hot.
Men do not.
All I have to do is burn,
There we go.
burn the artist's hands.
Ha ha.
Is every piece of pineapple? Oh yeah.
Perfect.
We're gonna get right into it. It's 6 egg yolks and 6 egg whites. You have to separate the eggs. It's very important. Put it right into the mixing bowl. And now notice the mixer is fitted with a wire whisk. Break up the egg yolks a little bit. Add 3/4 of a cup of granulated sugar. And just add the sugar slowly. You don't have to do it too quickly. And 1½ teaspoons of just the best quality vanilla that you can find. And 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Now I wanted to also point out, this is the cookie sheet. The cookie sheet is buttered completely. Then a piece of parchment is fitted exactly in the bottom. Then buttered again, and then lightly floured. And shake out, make sure you bang out any excess flour like that. So that is ready to go. So now we need 3/4 cup of all-purpose flour.
Do you ever use cake flour for this recipe?
Oh, my mom always used cake flour, but instead of using cake flour, we're going to use half all-purpose, unbleached, and half cornstarch, which makes even a lighter flour than the cake flour. And here we're going to do the 3/4 cup of cornstarch. I use any kind of strainer. See, this has the cornstarch has lumps.
Yep.
See those lumps? So you want to make sure you don't get those lumps. Oh, now look how nice this has gotten. So there's your 6 egg whites. Now 6 tablespoons of your same granulated sugar into the egg whites. Keep mixing this until it's nice and glossy. So the egg whites act as the leavening for the cake itself. Instead of using a baking powder, we're using egg whites to lighten and also cause the cake to rise in the pan. So look how pretty, beautiful, not dry.
Looks like whipped cream almost.
Yeah, I was gonna, yeah.
Now we're going to fold the egg whites into the egg yolks. So do some, and I'll just use this to start to lighten the mixture.
That's a great trick.
Now you can do the flour this way too.
Cool.
And I find that, but I always like to sift the flour over.
So that's how you get your double sift.
Yeah. And you also are just doing a little flour at a time. So you just sift this over. And I think now we've kept it very light, and I will just use the rubber spatula to make sure every little bit is incorporated. Go to the bottom and then lightly, lightly lift. So now carefully distribute. Look how much batter.
Wow.
I mean, this is, that's from those well-beaten eggs, beautifully incorporated with the flour, with the dry ingredients. And it's light and airy, and it's going to be filled with whipped cream and homemade raspberry jam. What could be bad?
Do you ever use this one for like a bûche de Noël, like for Christmas?
This is exactly the cake that I use for my bûche de Noël. So see how nice and even this is? And this goes into a preheated 350-degree oven for just about 20 minutes until a cake tester comes out clean. So now the exciting part. Very important, flour sack towels like this. You can buy these in cooking supply stores. Sprinkle through a sieve with 10x sugar. Confectioner's sugar is also known as 10x. And I think, oh yes, beautiful. Now don't overbake the cake. You want to make sure that the cake is no darker than that. And oh, this is coming away nicely from the edges. I think this is going to be a great jelly roll. And I also put a little bit of sugar right on the top of the cake before I roll it.
Does that
like
also help
this.
with rolling, or is that for
No,
flavor?
but it helps with the flavor. It gives sort of a little bit of a sugary crunch to the cake itself, top and bottom of the cake. You'll see. Now, it's hot, so you want to just turn it over like this. Bang. Oh, I think it came out. Oh, it did.
Yeah, right
That
out.
looks perfect.
And look, the parchment stayed in the pan. And now sugar it again. Feels good. It feels soft, spongy. So now you roll.
And does the heat help it roll? Is that why you do it right when it comes out of the oven?
Yes. And hopefully without cracking. And there. And keep the seam on the bottom. There. Let that cool. We have one that came out of the oven a little while ago, and it is already cool. Now watch. And the sugar also helps prevent the sticking. Look at this. Look how fluffy and beautiful. Yummy. So for the filling, use about 1.5 cups of heavy cream. And this is going to be a whipped cream flavored with homemade raspberry jam. Look at this raspberry jam. It's about maybe 1/3 cup or so. And this will be very tasty. Look how pretty. And again, buy really good cream. I'm always looking for the organic, of course. I think we have to do that for our kids, our own health. Okay, so here we have our whipped cream on our cooled cake. And go pretty much to the edges. Now roll this back up. See how nicely it rolls?
Yeah.
Look how pretty. And this crust, this nice crackled crust is sugary. And that really helps with the taste. Now, a little trim would be good. Sometimes people do it on an angle, but I don't want to waste so much cake. So, and I'm not going to waste this anyway, because guess what? We're gonna eat this.
Oh yeah.
There. Oh, it looks very pretty.
With a serrated knife.
Yeah, use a serrated knife. Use a large spatula to lift this onto my serving plate. Look how nice. That's been chilled for 30 minutes or so. It's good to just let the filling set. If you want to keep your pretty serving platter clean, you just insert a little piece of wax paper all around the cake. And then now you can sprinkle to your heart's content. I'll cut one slice. Use a cake server. Oh, my mother would be so proud. Look at that.
Fabulous.
Nice little dollop of whipped cream on the side. And some pretty berries. So here's 3 forks. Let me know if it meets your expectation.
Okay.
Thank you. Want to turn it? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sugar. So jelly rolls can be filled with all sorts of things. Believe me, you are going to enjoy and love this particular version. And now my roulade has just come out of the oven. On a muslin towel, sprinkle lots of sugar and turn the cake out right onto the towel. There it is. Released nicely. Peel off the parchment paper. What a beautiful cake. This really is a great recipe. Sprinkle this side with just a little bit of confectioner's sugar. I know I just said that these cakes were the same chiffon cake recipe used in the other cakes in this show, but I omitted the lemon zest, and I decreased the proportions of the ingredients slightly to accommodate baking it in 2 rimmed baking sheets. And now roll this up short end all the way. And you want to roll the towel inside, being careful not to crack the cake. This cake is so malleable, so flexible. So that's cake number 1. And here's our second cake. So now comes the best part of the stump cake, the decorating. 10 ounces of white chocolate gently melted, mixed with 3 to 4 tablespoons of corn syrup. The corn syrup makes it soft enough so you can mold it with your fingers. You do the same thing with your dark chocolate. So now put this right on a piece of plastic wrap and set it aside. So now for the filling of the cake. 6 tablespoons of chocolate hazelnut spread and 1/4 cup of heavy cream. And we have 3 cups of whipped cream, beaten to soft peaks. with a half a cup of confectioner's sugar. That is our filling. The reason I added the heavy cream is just to loosen up that hazelnut spread. Now put this right into your whipped cream and blend well. And now it's time to assemble our stump cake. Here are our chiffon cakes. Unwrap both and then roll them back up again and cut each cake into 3 equal pieces. All right, so take one piece and unroll it and spread a nice even layer of your hazelnut whipped cream on this. You need about a cup. Spread it in a nice even layer. Okay, so now roll this up and stand it up. Now, why am I standing it up? Well, what I really would like is when you slice into the cake, you're going to have vertical layers in each slice. And here's our second piece. So just keep going around like that with successive layers. And as you finish, then get this right into the refrigerator and chill it. So here is the cake all wound up, and here is our white molding chocolate. And roll this into a round that will fit over the top of that cake stump. Cut that into a round. A few cracks will be okay. And place it on top of the cake. The cake's approximately 9 inches in diameter, and this is 9.5. That's good. Tuck the edges down. The bark will come up and encase the edges. So there, first step. And now we'll roll out the dark chocolate. This is the bark of the tree. To make it look like bark, I just mark it with the square edge of this spoon. So you can just brush off the powdered sugar, and on the back side, you just brush with a little bit of water, which will act as an adhesive to make this stick to the cake. Now this is why it's called molding chocolate, because it really does mold right to where you want it to go. Crunkle this up, make it look like it's in the woodland. I think that's looking good. Starting to look like a tree trunk. Now continue piece by piece until you go all the way around our magnificent stump cake. So I'm now doing the final decorating. You can see that we've really crimped the chocolate so that it looks like the roots growing into the ground. A little bit of dirt around the top here, which is really dark cocoa. This is the fun part. I love doing this faux painting. We have to cut some lines on the top to resemble cracks. You can use the sharp edge of the knife or the back edge of the knife. And of course, every tree has yearly growth, and you tell that by the rings of the tree. And you can just make a little bit of wet cocoa. Get the gist? It's going to look like a faux bois stump. Nice. Then we have some melted chocolate that can be put here and there, and some moss, which is finely ground pistachios, this beautiful green, and that can just be put here and there. Before you make a tree like this, go out into your woods and take a look at what they look like. Does the moss grow up the tree? Of course it does. Looking very pretty. Oh, I like this too. I like these shards of chocolate, sort of look like pine needles that you would find on the forest floor. Remnants of the caramel cake. And now, if you want, you can fashion some cremini. Now these with the cottage cheese tops, deadly poisonous. Stay away from these. All of these are made out of a fondant, so they're totally edible. despite their poison appearance. This recipe uses the same pâte à choux recipe, but the dough is piped into puffs. The size of your croquembouche mold will determine how many puffs you actually need. And then each puff is colored with a topping of something called Creme. This is the Creme recipe right now. 1 stick of unsalted butter, so 3/4 of a cup of sugar, 1 cup of all-purpose flour, a pinch of salt, and I want this to be a pink croquembouche, so I'm just going to add 1 drop of pink food coloring. A disc of this dough is placed right on top of each pâte à choux puff before it goes into the oven. And it's a nice trick to fancify regular cream puffs. So there's your beautiful colored dough. Press it on a piece of parchment paper and roll it between 2 pieces to a thickness of approximately 1/8 of an inch. Put this on a baking sheet and chill it for at least 30 minutes. And I have one that's already been firmed up, and I'll show you how to cut out 72 rounds for the puffs, the first batch of puffs. So now, pipe puffs. And I'll show you how to get rid of the point. Just a little moisture on your finger. You want them as round as can be for this particular recipe. You'll need 4 batches of pâte à choux to make at least 144 puffs. And then top with your Creme. So cut out circles that are just about the right size for your puff top. Very nice. And now you can lift up the little discs, and each one is placed right on top, like that. So this is an unusual and interesting technique. This looks kind of cute with the pink tops, but they'll look even more beautiful when they bake. And craquelin means crackling, and you'll see what I mean by crackling. I'll continue topping all the pâte à choux puffs, bake them off in a 400-degree preheated oven for 10 minutes, reducing the temperature to 350, bake until golden brown and the topping is completely crackled and crisp. And that'll take approximately another 15 minutes. Just keep repeating the process until you have 12 dozen. So now we're going to make the filling for the puffs. In the bowl of a standing mixer, set over a pot of boiling water, whisk 6 large egg whites. Put them right on top of the simmering water and add 1½ cups of granulated sugar. What we're doing here is melting the sugar into warmed egg whites. So now the sugar is melted. This gets set right on the mixer. And you beat the egg whites until they're completely voluminous and cool. Very important that they be cool and stiff. And so now is the time to start adding your butter. 4 sticks, about 1 or 2 tablespoons at a time. And once all the butter is incorporated and everything is ready to pipe, we're going to add 1 cup very finely chopped strawberries and 1/3 of a cup of seedless strawberry jam. This will give a lot of flavor to the puff. Now these are the craquelin topped puffs. They are utterly beautiful. I love how the pink crackle looks, with a beautiful interior ready to fill with the buttercream. So that one's for me. And here's our buttercream, a large piping bag fitted with a star tip. And I like to do right in the bottom a nice filling of cream. And just continue to fill until each puff has a goodly amount of Swiss meringue buttercream inside. This is a special mold that allows you to make the perfect pyramid. And what you do is dip the bottom of your puff into hot caramel. The caramel is your glue. It holds everything together And I'm going to continue all the way around this beautiful cone-shaped mold. And you can see that other things have been added. I like to surprise with maybe a beautiful macaron, strategically placed to fill a space, or some little homemade meringue kisses, and they stick on wherever there's an opening. I think it's looking really special. This would be the perfect addition to a bridal or baby shower, a wedding, or any very special occasion. Pâte brisée, which is my basic pie crust, has no eggs and very little sugar. And the pâte sucrée has 2 egg yolks, and the pâte sucrée extra has an extra egg yolk. So that's what we're making. 2½ cups of all-purpose flour, unbleached, a pinch of salt, 1/3 of a cup of sugar. And I'm going to just pulse this a little bit. It's the same thing as sifting it. Using a food processor is really, it makes this really, really easy. We have timed making it by hand and making it in a food processor, and I think it takes 16 or 18 seconds in a food processor, and it takes a lot longer by hand. Yeah. Maybe the butter is icy cold, 2 sticks cut up into beautiful cubes. Really helps very much in the cutting in process. I still want to have little tiny bits of butter visible. And then we have 3 large egg yolks and 1/4 cup of ice water. Beat this up a little bit.
Do you use sucré instead of brisée just for flavor? Is the texture preferred?
It's a little sturdier and tasty because it's sweet and pretty. It keeps its shape very nicely. And you can just pour this.
Now, can this be done ahead of time?
Oh yeah, you can keep it refrigerated overnight. Don't keep it too much longer. You know how pastry starts to get gray?
Yeah.
So, but look at the great color. And put this on a little bit of bench flour. You have to have enough moisture. You have to make sure it's not too dry. If it's too dry, you're going to have a really hard time rolling it out. Just divide this in half because this will make 2 9-inch tarts. And wrap this in plastic wrap, a nice flat round. So these will go into the fridge. And we have one all ready to roll. We have a 9-inch tart shell. We want it to be larger than the pan. Now, how do you get the dough from here to there?
Roll it onto your rolling pin.
Good. And watch what you're doing. See, it went in very nicely. And then with the backs of your fingers, you can press into the pan. I like to reinforce the sides, and that reinforcing means doubling down a little bit. I push this down a little bit like that, all the way around. Now you can get the excess off. Press this down like that, and use your rolling pin to just break it off. And that works very well. It gives you a very nice crust. Chill this for about 20 minutes before you bake it. So we have our chilled shell, looks good. You don't have to dock it because it's a dense dough. The egg yolks keep it nice and flat. We're going to blind bake. And a piece of parchment paper looks like I'm getting ready to throw it away or throw it at somebody. But just wrinkle that up. It makes it more malleable and it'll fit nicer into the shell. Have your oven preheated to 375 and add your weights. These are all kinds of different beans and lentils, split peas, and they make a very nice weight. So this goes right into the oven for about 20 minutes. Remove the weights and the paper and bake until it's a nice golden brown. Here's our finished tart shell, nice crispy brown crust, and it's ready to fill. You have to pit the cherries. That's the time-consuming thing to do. So best to try to find a cherry pitter. The best one, I think, is this German version. And the pits fall into this container here. But don't you love that? This goes like fast, really great. Now this you can find in odd little hardware stores. You put the cherry right here and you just push this down and the pit goes into the jar and the cherry is pitted. And then there's this one. I just want to show you all these versions because they're kind of interesting. This one you put the cherry here and you push down. And the pit comes out and your cherry is done. So whatever way you choose to do it, 3½ cups of cherries. So cut these in half and add them to your 3½ cups. And now we're going to whisk the cream until it's nice and smooth. This is chilled. And add 1/2 cup of heavy cream whipped. This will lighten it slightly, enrich it slightly, and add a little bit of flavor. And I'm mixing that in. And now put this pastry cream right into your shell. Now you could chill this again if you'd like, but I'm going to put the cherries right on top. We're putting the cherries cut side up all the way around. And the stem end out or in, whichever way, but once you start, try to be uniform for the prettiest tart. So here, last cherry. And I have cherry jam that's been strained, and then dress your tart. Once you do this final little embellishment, put the tart in the refrigerator, let it chill before unmolding, cutting, and serving. Have you ever made pot de creme? This is an old-fashioned French baked custard dessert that translates to pots of cream. And the term pots of cream also refers to small lidded pots that it's traditionally served in. Now these are chocolate pot de creme, and I have 6 ounces of semi-sweet chocolate on the board. And notice I'm using a serrated knife to cut the chocolate very easily into small pieces. Always use a serrated knife to do this. We have 2½ cups of heavy cream brought to a boil. Add to that some espresso powder, 2 teaspoons. Now espresso powder is not ground up coffee beans. Espresso powder is espresso coffee dehydrated into crystals and very, very finely ground. So when reconstituted in a liquid, it gives that really strong, delicious espresso flavoring. And 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And right into the cream, add your 6 ounces of semi-sweet chocolate. Use the best chocolate you can find. We generally use a French or Belgian chocolate. Just stir that up a little bit, let it sit until the chocolate is completely softened. So now we'll get our eggs ready for the pot de creme. We need 4 large egg yolks. So have a little bowl to collect the whites. And the fresher the eggs, the better, of course. Beautiful, beautiful eggs. Stir the egg yolks, breaking them with a wire whisk. Add 1/4 teaspoon of salt and 4 teaspoons of granulated sugar. You can use extra fine or regular granulated. Now here is your chocolate. Whisk that up, it's completely melted. And now we have to temper the egg yolks with the cream. So pour a little bit of the hot chocolate into the egg yolks, bringing the egg yolks up to temperature. You don't want to cook the egg yolks. So you see I'm adding the hot chocolatey cream slowly so that I do not cook those egg yolks. Just tempering them. And now the custard is ready to strain and put into the little pots, the little pot. So now just put this mixture right through a very fine sieve to get out any possible lumps. And this will make a gossamer pudding. And now we're using these very cute little oven-proof glass cups that I'm going to cook the pot de creme in. And I've put a terry towel in the bottom of this roasting pan just to keep the cups from shaking while they're in the oven. And I have some hot water boiling right here. That's going to make the bain-marie. Now pour your boiling water next to around and up the sides of the little cups. And now it's optional whether you want to cover your custards or not. I like to cover them just with a piece of parchment paper like this. Transfer this into a 325-degree preheated oven. It's going to take around 35 to 40 minutes, so set your timer. So once the puddings are out of the oven and nicely cooled, top them with whipped cream like that. Make sure that you cool the puddings, the pot de creme, and refrigerate for a couple hours before serving. These are gorgeous, a delicious end to any meal. We start with the dry ingredients. 3/4 cup of Dutch processed cocoa, 1½ teaspoons of baking soda, 1½ teaspoons of baking powder, 3/4 teaspoon of salt, 1½ cups of all-purpose flour, and 1½ cups of sugar. So you can mix this up with your beater. And now the liquid ingredients. 3 tablespoons of safflower oil, 3/4 cup of buttermilk, 2 eggs, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And have on hand 3/4 cup of warm water. It looks a little curdled, but that's okay. That's the eggs and the buttermilk. And you can see that it is pretty dense, so we're going to add that water right now. Now your pan should be buttered, cocoaed, lined with parchment, buttered again, and more cocoa. This is also buttered, lined with parchment, buttered, and cocoaed. We need a cup of batter for the base. Your oven should be preheated to 350 degrees. And then the rest of the batter gets poured right into the big sheet pan. We're using a jelly roll pan, 10½ inches by 15½ inches. We want a very thin layer of chocolate cake because we're going to do something very special with it. There. So right into the oven until set and a toothpick comes out clean, about 12 to 14 minutes for both the round and the rectangular. So the cakes have cooled. Look how nice they look. And now for the filling, white chocolate ganache. So we have 1 cup of heavy cream that is boiling hot, 12 ounces of white chocolate, cut into small pieces for easy, quick melting. Once the chocolate melts, let it cool for about an hour. Just sit until it's a spreadable consistency. And so now we're going to spread the ganache on top of our rectangle. Cut the cake into 4 even quarters. And you stack these one on top of the other. Lift this onto a piece of plastic wrap and chill it for 30 minutes. Here is your chilled cake. We want to cut this in half and then into 1-inch pieces. In a 10-inch springform pan, this has a removable bottom, lined with a round of parchment. Place your smaller round cake. And then pick up your slices, and these stand right up all the way around. So when you slice this, you're going to have stripes. Now we plan for most of the cake to be used. I have a piece left over. Enjoy it. Now get this right into the refrigerator, and then we'll fill the interior. So now fill the interior of this pan with 2 quarts of your favorite chocolate ice cream. And I've brought it to a slightly warmer temperature than freezing because it has to be pressed in with no air spaces. So you can imagine when you slice this cake, you're going to get a really pretty edge. It is delicious, and it is better than any store-bought ice cream cake. So now get this wrapped quickly and put it right back in the freezer at least overnight. This is our beautiful striped cake. And fill the center with lightly whipped, lightly sweetened cream. This is about 3 cups. If you want to get fancy, you could pipe the cream, but if you're up for it, you can make some milk chocolate curls and sprinkle those on top. Wow, what an ice cream cake. Some people say tiramisu has been around since the days of Michelangelo. That's the 16th century, and its name means pick me up, and it's been made with ladyfingers, biscotti flecked mascarpone, espresso, whipped cream, and last but not least, coffee flavored liqueur. To make the ladyfingers, not too difficult to make your own, and they're so much better than anything you can buy. So 6 egg yolks with 11 tablespoons of sugar. So let this beat up until it's light and fluffy. We also are going to use 1 1/4 cup of flour. Always level. And in another mixing bowl, we have the 6 egg whites. And you can prepare your baking sheets if you like. We have drawn the width of the ladyfingers that we want to create, and you'll need 2 baking sheets lined with parchment. So that's beating very nicely. And we have to fold the flour into the egg yolk mixture. You can use the machine for folding if you do it quickly. Otherwise, use a rubber spatula and fold in the flour by hand. So I'm going to sprinkle, and that's folding a little bit. That's it. So it's a little faster than with the rubber spatula. So now finish off the folding process with your beater. Just go around a few times. And into this, you're going to fold softly beaten egg whites. Sprinkle with 1 tablespoon of granulated sugar. They get nice and fluffy. The egg whites go from translucent to white and fluffy. So this looks just about the right consistency. You don't want to overbeat. And now lighten your mixture with a dollop of this. And amazingly, this does lighten. So now add some more of your egg white. Homemade ladyfingers tend to be softer than the commercially available ladyfingers, and I think they're just so much better. So that looks good. Now, the easy way to pipe this is, of course, with a pastry bag and 1/2-inch round pastry tip. Fold down the top of your bag and fill with the batter. By folding down the top, it enables you to not get batter dripping out of the top of the bag. You can fold over the collar and gather it and pipe. Now, these are all going to be buried in the tiramisu, so you're not even going to see them. So if they're not absolutely perfect, don't worry about it. Make sure you preheat your oven to 350 degrees. Now, before these go into the oven, you must sprinkle them with powdered sugar. This forms a kind of crunchy crust on top of the spongy ladyfingers. Now, if you're not familiar with ladyfingers, they're a classic cake-like cookie used as an accompaniment for ice cream, mousses, puddings, charlotte russe, and other desserts. They're also known as the biscuit de Savoie, which is the Savoy biscuit. Let the ladyfingers sit out for about 3 or 4 minutes and into the 350-degree oven for about 15 minutes. And now for the final assembling of the lovely tiramisu. You'll need some biscotti or some amaretti. Grind them up in a food processor. That's good. Gives that little crunch in the tiramisu. And then to a pound of mascarpone, you will add 1 cup of sugar and 8 large egg yolks broken up. So stir this up. And now sprinkle in your cookie crumbs, ground up. And now your egg whites, just make sure that they are nice and fluffy, and fold those in. These are the 8 egg whites from the 8 egg yolks. And finish folding the remaining egg whites. So this is ready. Our ladyfingers are ready. This is freshly made cooled espresso. And to this espresso, add 2 tablespoons of a coffee liqueur. And you're going to be soaking these quickly in the coffee liqueur. What you want is this whole surface covered with your delicious lady fingers. Now, spread a layer of the mascarpone. Spread it carefully in an even layer, and it has that lovely color from the biscotti. Now, another layer of the lady fingers. And if you love coffee, you're going to love this dessert. So spread this all over the second layer. And when did you say you were having that dinner party? This is the dessert to serve. And you're going to top it next with a layer of beautiful, fluffy whipped cream. Flavor your whipped cream with a tiny bit of confectioner's sugar and about a teaspoon of vanilla. Tastes very good. And then just swirl it on top. And this must get right into the refrigerator to be chilled for, several hours and preferably overnight. Now the last gilding of this beautiful Italian lily is a fine grating. You can actually see the layers of the filling and the lady fingers. This might just be everyone's favorite Italian dessert. Give it a try.